The challenge with all of those types of emergency services is we typically, when we have, say, we have a hurricane or we have wildfires down in LA, they're isolated to that region and the rest of the country can pitch in and help. If this war starts, this is going to affect the entire nation. And so we're going to be kind of probably on our own for a little bit.
That's Douglas Wickert, Brigadier General Douglas Wickert, United States Air Force. From his presentation, China is a peer adversary, not a near-peer adversary. That portion is from a Q&A session after his initial presentation. And during that video, I had said that there was a portion of the video that required a separate video all to itself. This is that. The question asked here is quite simple. Is there a plan B? And his answer is both enlightening and frightening. Let's get into it a little bit here.
Yeah, General. Do we have a plan B? If we know our infrastructure is going to be targeted, we know that there's a possibility of either China, a natural disaster, or another earthquake, we're going to be cut off. Yeah. So what kind of plan B do we have in place for power, water, and survival?
Excellent question. And one that I hope all of us are asking ourselves. Like, what is our, and this is actually, you know, I've painted a picture of what happens when China starts the war, or when Chairman Xi starts the war. See, we got to be careful. We got to police ourselves. Again, we're not picking a fight with the Chinese people. When Chairman Xi starts the war, you know, what is our plan? But it's also that same type of preparedness that we do. It's what happens when the San Andreas Fault decides to do its thing, or, you know, wildfires or whatever. So, you know, we happen to live in a community where emergency preparedness and disaster preparedness is hand in hand with, you know, Chairman Xi being a bad actor type of preparedness. So this is a question. I love the question, and it's the perfect first question because it's the one that I want all of us to ask ourselves. And so I'll share a little bit of insight what we've done up at Edwards. As an installation. And some of you were partners in this. So last December, we actually did a week-long exercise that exercised exactly this. The war has started. China has attacked our electrical grid. We have persistent communications problems. How are we going to keep the test mission going? Because once the
electrical grid is down and communications are, let's just say, intermediate at best. So I want to go back into his presentation here, and we're just going to go back a little bit, and he actually responds, he points out the threats and responds to his own question.
It does matter for lots of reasons. China has built at a staggering speed. The rate at which they've built all those ships and built that Navy and built that Air Force, built that rocket force, built the hypersonics missiles, has been staggering. But they do more than that. They are also targeting our critical infrastructure right here. We know that the Chinese have infiltrated our electrical grids. There is Chinese malware on all the SCADA systems that control electric power communications. The first indication that we have that the invasion of Taiwan has started is probably that the lights go out and that the cellular network doesn't work anymore. If it did work and you could still log into your bank account, you might not actually see anything because all the records might be scrambled. It might be confusing. There's a way to actually attack us without attacking us.
So there's Chinese malware in the electrical grid. That's what the general just said. That they could attack us pretty much at will if they so chose. And he expounds upon this.
So this is a list since 2024 of all the cyber attacks, named cyber attacks, known cyber attacks from China, originating from China. The designation that we use, typhoons are attacks that originate from China. Dust storms are ones that come from Iran. Blizzards are cyber operations that start from Russia. These are the named operations. Go ahead and build for me, and I'll mention just a couple of them. So Volt Typhoon, we've known about since 2019, 2020 timeframe. This is Chinese malware in all of our critical infrastructure: water, electrical, communications, oil, Air traffic control, they're in the SCADA systems. We know that they're there. We can't actually get them out. So that's Volt Typhoon.
They're in the electric system, and we can't get them out. You heard the general say that. Those are his words, not mine. I didn't say that. He did. So I find it incredible that this is going on, and so few people know it. It also comes into question, what should you do on your end? If the first thing we know that the invasion of Taiwan has happened, that the electric grid goes out and cell phone communications go, does the word mass chaos come to mind? It does for me.
Communications problems. How are we going to keep the test mission going? Because once the war starts, we know we are going to have joint urgent operational needs. We're going to have capability, rapid reprogramming. There's things that we're going to need to keep the mission going up there. And so how do we fight through that? And so we did that for a week. And then we followed that, and we learned some things, right? I can't reveal the vulnerabilities that we uncovered, but we uncovered things. We're like, ooh, we should probably fix that. That doesn't work. We should probably fix that. We followed that up with a tabletop exercise with the local community. And so if you were part of the tabletop, I know some of you in here were. Go ahead and raise your hand. That we did. There were a couple. Yep. So we had City of Lancaster, Palmdale. We had the Kern County Sheriff. We had Southern California Edison. We had some of the emergency managers from the local community all come, and we sat down around the table and said, okay, we just lived through this for a week, and it was really difficult. Now imagine that it's 6 months into the future. And we talked through a couple different scenarios in terms of like breakdown of civil society.
Breakdown of civil society. Breakdown of civil society. I just want to make sure that that part was clear, that this brigadier general from the United States Air Force, who is responsible for the planning in the event of a war scenario with China, is telling you that his base, his section, will be on their own in a breakdown of society situation. What might a breakdown of society situation look like? There's been an old saying for a long time that people are 9 meals away from anarchy. And I'm going to include this in all the stuff here. Are we really 9 meals away from anarchy? And this just goes through what happens when food, electricity, and the basics of modern U.S. civilization stop. Remember, this is a United States Brigadier General saying this, not me. And he's going to say something else here too.
Martial law, we would expect that if martial law is declared.
Martial law. Martial law is declared. What does that mean? What does that mean for society as a whole? Well, there's a number of scenarios that comes out with that. And we've seen them lately with Los Angeles, with what I actually cite as a little more important and telling, that in the Minneapolis FBI raid, where the FBI, along with other federal agencies, went to go raid what was a meth lab and a methamphetamines shipping organization. The community around there thought it was ICE raiding undocumented immigrants. They reacted violently and quickly, utilizing their cell phones and the network to attack. And I use that word specifically because there has been one of those people charged with assaulting a federal officer, with attacking those people, attacking those federal officers, preventing them from doing their duty. Thank God they captured the weapons and the 900 pounds of methamphetamines. So they were still able to accomplish their mission. But what is that? We're talking about the devolution of civil society. I read this article almost at the time it came out. This is called When the Music Stops, How America's Cities Will Explode in Violence. I wrote this back in 2012, which frankly is around the time that I actually read it myself. It was originally published at the Old Western Rifle Shooters Association website, and since then it's been reposted dozens of times on other websites. It's included in the Bracken Collection, Essays and Short Fictions 2010 to 2019, which is available on Amazon. Details on my own website. And I encourage you to go to his website and take a look at Matt Bracken's work. He's very insightful. It's definitely worth your time, and if you find it worth your money, I would encourage you to spend a little bit. This article, however, is his theoretical look at what would happen after the breakdown of civilization, of law and order, flash mob looting. Have we seen flash mob looting in the last 5 years? I think we have. This paper is prophetic. Ransacking supermarkets, ransacking other places. Food riots. Flash mob riots. Have we seen flash mob riots? I believe we have. May I cite Portland and many other places. The official police response to flash mob riots. This is where it gets very interesting, because what he's going to go through in this portion is eventually the police don't show up. And the reason they don't show up is quite simple. They have families they have to protect as well. These are human beings. They may be law enforcement officers, but they're also human beings with family that need to be protected. And he continues down this in this article. And again, I encourage you to read this article. It is incredibly insightful, especially in the world we live in now. And then he goes into the suburban armed vigilante response. Because you're not going to have these cities moving out into the suburban and rural areas without a fight. And he goes through that specifically, and a couple of scenarios that were used in Iraq and Afghanistan, as you can see up on the screen. And then he goes through a sample of what that would look like. I don't want to say too much, but you can read it for yourself. And he also goes into the response of what it'll be like when the response is looked at by the authorities. I encourage you to look at this article. Again, I'm going to link this in there. This is one of the most profound articles I've ever read in my entire life. This is not an exaggeration. One of the most profound articles I have ever read in my entire life. Back in 2012, 2013, when I originally read it, it was merely theoretical. Now, you can absolutely see everything that was in there coming to fruition, short of the last parts. We don't want to get to those last parts, but let's get back to the general.
It's it would be Edwards Air Force Base, would be this region, would be the military commander would have, in partnership with the civil governance. How do we do that from a command and control and a law enforcement? So we talked through that and uncovered, like, okay, well, we probably need to go figure that out. We don't have a solution, but we started the dialogue. And so I think that's what we need to do. We do have some fortunate things. So, you can see it right there. That is a very, very large solar farm, about 430 megawatts of generating capacity, 980 megawatts of storage capacity. So it's possible that we can actually isolate large portions of this from the rest of the grid that goes down and maybe bring smaller grids back up.
When the grid goes down, not if. He didn't say if. He said when. Civilization stops when the power goes out. Bottom line, civilization stops when the power goes out. When the power goes out, it's Mad Max, baby. It's The Road. If you haven't seen The Road.
But these are the things that we need to think about and think through. Water. Water is one of those things that only, particularly in a very, very hot environment like this, could become critical. But again, that's also one of those things from a disaster preparedness. There's probably, a community public service message that, we can all help reinforce about just having a couple days supply worth of water available, some food, some staples.
Couple of days worth of food and water. The grid going down. He just said 27 seconds ago that the grid is going to go down. And it's not going to come back for months. Couple of days of food and water.
Now, by no means do I recommend that everybody turn into a prepper. Is that what they're called, I think?
Pretending like he doesn't know what a prepper is. Guys, he knows exactly what a prepper is. Because that's partially what his job is.
But there's at least a couple days worth of supplies, medication, those types of things are. But that's the conversation. So I love the question, and I wish I had the complete answer for what a Plan B is. There are emergency response type things. So FEMA's there. We have the DoD has a services type of thing, primarily for disaster standpoint. The challenge with all of those types of emergency services is we typically, when we have, say, we have a hurricane or we have wildfires down in LA, they're isolated to that region and the rest of the country can pitch in and help. If this war starts, this is going to affect the entire nation.
If this war starts, it's going to affect the entire nation. Brigadier General Douglas Wickert, United States Air Force, just said if this war starts, it's going to affect the entire nation. And he is talking about the grid going down. He's talking about communications going down. We could also receive kinetic attacks on this country. It's been my opinion now for quite a while that we are beginning the age of intercontinental ballistic conventional warfare. It started with the launch of the Oreshnik missile in Ukraine. Russia gave 30 minutes warning to the United States that they were launching this missile and what the missile was, making it clear that this was a non-nuclear attack. That's the new handshake agreement. Warn us that you're shooting, so that way we don't think it's nuclear. Going forward, I think that's going to be the case globally. Because if you have somebody targeting a different location, and that person's location, the one who is targeting, is thousands of miles away on a different continent, it's still imperative in your war aim to stop that from happening. How do you do that? Well, we have seen the distance of strikes get longer and longer. The weapons becoming more and more intercontinental in nature. We have the French saying that they're going to have a over 2,000 kilometer conventional strike missile. Conventional, not nuclear. That's the French saying that. So, a new kind of warfare is approaching, and I don't think we're ready for it.
And so we're going to be kind of probably on our own for a little bit. And so that's why, again, having these conversations, knowing who to call and who to get to and who to talk to is why we're having this conversation right now. Great question. Thank you.
Question here.
And thank you, General Wickert. That's his presentation. Again, I hope everyone has an opportunity to read the article, When the Music Stops, How America's Cities Will Explode in Violence. It is long, but it is worth it. It is absolutely worth it. If you want to know what's the next steps, what is about to happen in regards to this on-the-ground stuff regarding ICE, regarding federal authorities, regarding the protests of them, regarding just the left's plans in general. We just heard that they had planned an ambush on ICE agents. They're becoming more and more violent. We're teetering on an edge. And I hope that people will actually take an opportunity to read this article. I'm going to link it right below the presentation video. And this is the article, Are We 9 Days Away from Anarchy? I think it might also be better said, are we 48 hours without power from anarchy? Very close. And the first clue we might have that the war has started as the lights went out, guys, not me saying it, Brigadier General Douglas Wickert, United States Air Force, whose job is the command of Edwards Air Force Base, what would be one of the primary targets in a situation like this. He's saying it. But I'm done. If you like the video, share it, subscribe, let everyone know. The general sees the power going out. If the power goes out, the cities explode and anarchy reigns. I appreciate you. Thank you.